Imagine finding out the multi-million-dollar company you just bought is secretly funding terrorists, and you are now the one on the hook for it.
Yeah, that is the ultimate corporate nightmare. Historically, that meant the government was about to just completely tear your business apart.
Welcome to your custom deep dive. Today, we explore how the Department of Justice has completely rewritten the rules for corporate survival.
It's a massive shift.
It really is. We have a massive stack of sources today: official DOJ memos, speeches from top officials, and legal advisories from top law firms like Mintz and WilmerHale.
And the mission of this deep dive is to decode that dramatic shift in federal law enforcement. The DOJ recently launched this unified corporate enforcement policy,
Right.
and they are offering massive rewards for companies that confess to crimes and absolutely terrifying penalties for those who hide them.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Right.
We are going to look at how companies are now racing their own employees to the FBI, how they are clawing back executive bonuses.
Literally taking the money back.
Exactly. And what this means for you, whether you are an employee, a manager, or just an insanely curious learner.
Because the landscape has fundamentally changed. The government realized that playing whack-a-mole with global corporate crime is just inefficient.
They just don't have the manpower.
Right. They don't have the manpower to police every single multinational corporation. So instead of kicking down doors, the DOJ built a system that forces businesses to bring the crimes directly to them.
Right, and they do this using the Corporate Enforcement Policy, or the CEP. This is basically the government's big carrot.
A very big carrot.
Under the CEP, if a company voluntarily self-discloses a crime to the DOJ, fully cooperates and fixes the problem, they get what is called a declination.
Which is a really critical legal term.
Break that down for us.
So a declination means the DOJ officially declines to prosecute the company. It's a free pass from criminal charges. The government literally just walks away.
Wow. And even if the company misses a step, it doesn't perfectly meet every single technical rule for a declination?
What the DOJ calls a near miss.
Right, a near miss. The DOJ still slashes their fines by 50 to 75%. That is a massive discount.
It is. And what's fascinating here is how this framework applies to the wild world of corporate mergers. In late 2023, Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco announced the Mergers and Acquisitions Safe Harbor policy.
Okay.
And this rule directly targets that nightmare scenario you mentioned at the start of the deep dive.
The terrorist funding surprise.
Exactly.
Let's dig into that, because when one company buys another, they usually inherit all of its past sins. You buy the assets, but you also buy the liabilities.
Exactly. But under the Safe Harbor rule, the DOJ gives the buyer a very specific window. If you buy a company, you have exactly 6 months from the closing date to report any crimes you find inside that new business.
6 months.
6 months to report it, and then 1 year to fully fix the problems.
Yeah.
If you hit those deadlines, the DOJ promises that the acquired company's bad behavior won't ruin your clean record.
It's like buying a used car, opening the trunk, and finding a stash of stolen bank money.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
You have exactly 6 months to call the cops, or it becomes your bank robbery.
Precisely. You own the car, you own the robbery.
But wait, I have to push back here. So a massive corporation can just buy a criminal enterprise, say, oops, look what we found, and get off scot-free.
Well,
Because that sounds like a giant loophole for bad actors to launder their reputations.
I get that, but it is not a get-out-of-jail-free card for the crime itself. They dodged the criminal prosecution, yes, but they still have to give up all the stolen profits.
Oh, okay.
In the legal world, they call that disgorgement. They also have to pay back any victims. The company cannot keep the dirty money.
Okay, so they still lose the profits. But why is the DOJ being so lenient in the first place?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the DOJ is making a calculated trade. They are prioritizing national security and the integrity of the market over simply punishing every single corporate entity.
They want the hidden crimes exposed.
Exactly. The government would rather know about the threat and stop it than keep a company terrified of speaking up.
And the stakes are incredibly high. The sources mention some staggering real-world examples that show why this safe harbor policy is necessary.
Yeah, the Lafarge case is wild.
Let's look at that one. The French cement company, Lafarge, they ended up paying over $775 million in fines. Why? Because they were literally paying off ISIS.
Which is, that case is a masterclass in why due diligence matters when you buy a company.
Think about the logistics of how a crime like that actually happens. Lafarge is a massive cement manufacturer, right?
Right.
They have a plant in Syria during a brutal civil war. To keep the cement trucks moving safely through various checkpoints, local managers start paying off armed groups.
Just trying to keep the business running.
Yeah. But eventually, those groups include ISIS and the al-Nusra Front. Lafarge funnels millions to known terrorist organizations just to keep the factory running.
Now, put yourself in the shoes of a company looking to buy Lafarge. You send your accountants in to look at the books.
Right.
You see line items for security consultants or transportation fees in Syria. If you uncover that those fees are actually going to ISIS, you are holding a ticking time bomb.
And that is exactly why the 6-month window exists. Because if you find that, you need to be able to go to the government without destroying your own company.
Exactly.
The sources also point to British American Tobacco. They paid over $635 million for violating sanctions.
Doing business in North Korea, right.
Yeah, they were secretly doing business in North Korea through this complex web of third-party companies.
And if you acquire a company that is moving money for a sanctioned nation, the DOJ will destroy you if you try to hide it.
They will come down hard.
Oh, absolutely. The safe harbor policy gives buyers a reason to dig deep during an acquisition rather than just, putting on blinders and hoping for the best.
But this brings up a huge flaw in the system. Let's say the company comes clean. They get a free pass on the criminal charges. Or maybe they get a 75% discount on their fine.
Sure.
But who actually pays that fine? If a company pays $100 million to the government, the innocent shareholders are the ones footing the bill.
Yeah, the mom and pop investors.
Right. Meanwhile, the VP of sales who actually orchestrated the bribe already cashed his year-end bonus check.
You hit on the exact friction point that frustrated regulators for decades. Yeah. A corporate building doesn't bribe a foreign official. A human does.
Exactly.
And for a long time, the humans walked away rich, while the company and its innocent shareholders took the hit.
So how does the DOJ solve that?
They shift the financial liability away from the corporate entity and drop it directly onto the personal bank accounts of the executives.
Hit them in the wallet.
Exactly. This is the Compensation Clawback Pilot Program. The DOJ launched this in March 2023. Basically, the government tells the company, if you take back the bonus money from the executives who committed the crime...
And the managers who turned a blind eye.
Right, both of them. We will reduce your corporate fine dollar for dollar.
It's like returning stolen goods for store credit. You take back the executive's bonus, hand it to the DOJ, and get a discount on your fine.
That is exactly what it is, and it creates intense internal pressure.
But wait, I'm looking at this clawback rule, and I have to ask, how is that legally possible?
What do you mean?
Well, if I paid an executive a massive bonus 3 years ago, I can't just hack into their bank account and take the money back. How do companies actually enforce this without getting sued into oblivion?
That's the genius of the policy. It forces companies to rewrite the rules of employment before a crime ever happens.
Oh, so they change the contracts up front.
Exactly. To qualify for these DOJ discounts, businesses are actively changing their executive contracts. They're implementing deferred compensation.
Meaning they hold the money back.
Right. Instead of handing an executive $1 million cash bonus today, the company puts it in a restricted account that pays out over 3 or 4 years.
Okay, that makes sense.
If the executive gets caught breaking the law during that time, the company simply cancels the payout. And if the money was already paid, the new contracts include strict legal clauses that allow the company to sue the executive for breach of contract to get it back.
Wow.
Our sources show that at least 16 major corporations have already completely rewritten their compensation frameworks to align with this DOJ pilot.
There is a great example in the notes about a massive chemical company called Albemarle.
Oh, yeah. The Albemarle case is huge.
They discovered some of their third-party sales agents in Asia and the Middle East were paying bribes to win business. So what did Albemarle do? They froze the bonuses for the bad actors. They kept the money.
And the DOJ loved that.
They really did. When Albemarle reported it, the government rewarded them with a record 45% reduction on their fine.
It is essentially a plea deal where the company trades the guilty executive's wealth to the government to save itself. It changes compliance from a cost center.
Something that just drains the corporate budget. Imagine finding out your
into a
electric
money-saving
bill
shield.
is secretly funding the
company
government's
saves
massive
money by not
spending
paying the
addiction.
bad executive.
It is a pretty shocking realization when you
again
actually
by
look at the
paying a
math.
lower
Right.
fine to the
Well,
government.
imagine for
And
a
the
second that
DOJ
you
is
have a
taking this
savings
concept
of rapid rewards
and,
even further. In
you
February
swore to your family,
2026,
hand over heart,
the Southern District
that
of New
this
York
money was
SDNY,
strictly for fixing
which
a
handles
leaking
some one of the most complex
You
financial
said,
crimes in the
if
world.
we don't fix this roof,
launched a fast-track
the house is
program.
going to collapse.
This is a
It's an
radical
existential
departure
crisis
from
for the
traditional
house.
investigations.
Exactly. It's the Save the
Normally,
House
a
Fund.
corporate fraud
But then,
investigation
your car
takes
breaks down.
years.
Oh, you
spend a little
Lawyers
too much on
argue
groceries,
millions
you've
of
got bills
documents are
piling up.
reviewed,
So
and
what do
a
you
cloud
do?
of
You raid the
uncertainty
roof
hangs
fund.
over the company
You take that money,
indefinitely.
pay off
But
your
under
credit
this
cards,
new
and tell your family,
SDNY
hey, don't worry,
program,
we'll fix the
if a
roof
company
later.
reports
Right.
financial
And
crimes
in this
before
scenario,
they get a grand jury
the roof is
subpoena,
the planet.
they can
Or
get
at
a
least
conditional
Maryland's
pass
climate
in just
goals.
2 to 3 weeks. And the
Which is
car is a
unheard of.
massive
2 to 3 weeks
self-inflicted
is basically light speed for the federal legal
$1.5
system.
billion
It really is. It requires
state
extreme
budget
proactive
deficit.
A completely avoidable deficit,
But if a company
I might add.
qualifies,
Welcome
the
to the deep
benefits are
dive.
staggering. They
Today
pay
we're
zero
exploring a
criminal fines.
classic case
But more
of
importantly,
fiscal
they
sleight
avoid
of
a
hand
corporate
coming out of
monitor.
Annapolis.
We see that turn a lot
We're
in the
looking at the
sources.
Strategic
Why
Energy
is avoiding
Investment
a
Fund,
corporate monitor such
the
a huge
SAFE.
win?
A corporate
It's a
monitor
huge
is
pot
not
of
just a
money
regulator
meant
who
to
checks
save
in
the
once a
environment,
month. It
but
is
it's turning
an
into a hidden
external team
tax
of
on
private
every single
lawyers
person
and auditors
paying an electric
installed
bill
directly
in Maryland.
inside your
It
company
really
by the
is. It's
government.
become the
Wow,
center
so
of
they
a
are just
huge
embedded
political
there.
fight. Embedded,
You've
and they
got
stay
a
for
Democratic
years.
governor,
They look
frustrated
over your shoulder at
environmentalists
every
making some
major
very
decision,
awkward
and the company
compromises,
has to
and
pay their
conservative
hourly
critics who
rates.
are
That has
rightly
to be
calling this whole
incredibly
thing a
expensive.
shell game.
A shell game.
monitor can cost
And when
a
you look
business
at the documents
tens of
we have
millions
today,
of dollars
reports,
and completely
budget
strip
proposals,
leadership of their
critiques from Senate
autonomy.
Republicans, it
Avoiding
is
that
really
fate
hard to
is worth
unsee it.
Our
everything
mission
to
to
the
this deep dive is
CEO.
simple.
It's
Follow
a
the money.
massive government
Always
overreach.
follow the
If
money.
you end up
We are
with
going
one.
to see how
Okay,
a
so we
fund
just discussed
designed
all
to
these
fight
great
climate
rewards for coming
change
forward.
is
The
being
big
used to
carrot,
plug
the fast
holes in the
tracks,
state
the
budget.
fine reductions,
And we'll dig
avoiding
into the
corporate
argument that
monitor.
All
this
the
isn't
good
found
stuff.
money
Right.
at all. This
But
is essentially a
human
backdoor
nature is
tax on
stubborn.
families.
Let's
If
get
a
right
company
into
finds
it.
a massive
the Strategic
problem,
Energy Investment
why
Fund.
wouldn't
It
they
sounds
just
lock
lock
the
the
evidence in a
very
basement
important?
filing
What
cabinet
does it
and
actually
hope no
do?
one ever
Well,
finds out?
on paper,
Why
it is
voluntarily
the
invite the
state's
DOJ
green
into your
piggy
boardroom
bank.
at all?
The SIF is
Because
managed
the
by the
DOJ
Maryland
just
Energy
deputized
Administration. Its
the
whole
company's
stated purpose
entire
is to
workforce.
reduce
The corporate
energy bills,
whistleblower award
cut
program.
waste, and
Yes.
fund
The
renewable
government knows
energy.
they
cannot
solar
monitor
panels and
every
efficiency
corporate
upgrades.
email.
Exactly.
But the employees can.
But here is
They
the
see
real
everything.
aha moment of
Exactly.
this story.
Under the corporate whistleblower
Where does the
award
money
program,
actually
if an
come
employee
from?
knows about
Because
a
they
major
aren't just
corporate
taxing
crime and
you
reports it
directly
to the
for it.
government,
No,
that
and that's why
employee can grab
politicians
up to
absolutely love it. It
30%
feels free.
of the first
So about 40%
$100
comes from
million
regional
the
carbon
government
auctions.
seizes.
30%.
But the big chunk,
Let's do
the
that
one
math.
growing like crazy,
That is up to
comes from
$30
something
million
called
for
alternative
one
compliance
person.
payments,
It's insane.
or ACPs.
That is
Which is just a fancy
life-changing,
government term for a
disappear to a
fine.
private
Right.
island
It's a
kind of
fine
money.
for failure.
Let me
You are
break
no
it down.
longer asking
Maryland
an
law
employee to do
forces
the right
utility
thing
companies
purely
to
out of
buy
a sense of
certain
corporate
amount
ethics.
of green energy.
You are
They have to
offering
prove
them a
they're using
lottery ticket to
renewables.
turn on their
But if they
boss.
can't
And
find
the
that green
statistics
energy,
prove it
or if
works.
it's just way too expensive on the
Since
market.
the program
Which it
started in
usually is.
2024,
Yeah, the state gives them an
DOJ
escape
has
hatch.
received over
The utility can just pay a
1,100
fee
tips
directly
from
to the state
whistleblowers.
instead.
Over
That
1,000
fee is
tips.
the
And the
ACP.
sources outline
And
that in
here's the kicker.
2025, under the new administration,
Utilities are
this program
increasingly
expanded
just
heavily.
paying the
Yes, it did.
fine because
And just
it's
to be
cheaper
clear,
than actually
we are
buying
just
the
looking
green
at the
energy.
facts of the
Wait,
policy
so
change here.
The climate fund
The
is
DOJ
getting
broadened the
incredibly
scope
rich
of what whistleblowers can
precisely
report to
because
include trade
the green
and tariff
energy
fraud,
mandates are
immigration law
Precisely.
violations,
It is a
and drug
completely
cartel money
perverse
laundering.
incentive.
Right, tapping
The
into
government
those
made the
major
mandates so
national
aggressive
focus
and the
areas.
market is so
Exactly.
distorted
The umbrella
that
of
power
what
companies are
qualifies
just
for a
writing
massive
checks to the
payout
state
is
instead of
wider
going
than
green.
ever.
And the
scope
stats on
is
this are
just
just
massive,
staggering.
which
They
creates an
are.
incredible
In
tension
2022,
inside the company
this revenue
walls.
was $77
Here's where it gets
million.
really interesting.
By
The DOJ
2025,
created
it
something
jumped
called the
to
120-day rule
$365
to
million.
manage this tension.
Wow.
This is where
From
the pressure really
77
kicks
million
in.
to
Let's put
365
you,
million
the
in
listener,
3 years.
Right,
in the
so now the
shoes
state has
of a
this
corporate HR director.
massive accidental pot
It's
of
Tuesday
gold.
morning.
It's
An employee
supposedly
walks
for
into
green
your
projects.
office, sits down, and
But
says the
remember,
VP
that
of
money didn't
sales in
just fall out
Germany
of the sky.
is
The
bribing
utility
local
companies
officials to
paid
win
those fines.
contracts.
Okay.
They
And do
hand
you
you an
think
email
those
proving
massive
it. The
corporations
moment they
just
finish
eat
that
that
sentence,
cost out of the
a
goodness of their
120-day
hearts?
countdown
Oh,
clock
absolutely
starts
not. They
ticking above
pass
your head.
every single
The
penny
company
of
has
that onto the
exactly
customer.
120
Exactly.
days
It
to
shows up
investigate
right
that
on your
claim
electric bill.
and
So
report it to
you,
the DOJ.
the everyday
But the employee
ratepayer,
knows
are
about the
paying
$30
for the
million
utilities'
reward.
company's failure to meet a government mandate.
Isn't 120 days a ridiculously short amount of time to investigate a massive global corporate crime?
Which brings us to the raid.
Does this mean companies are literally raising
because that
their
money
own
is definitely
employees
not
to the
staying
FBI?
in the climate
Yes,
fund.
they absolutely
Not
are.
anymore. This
Enter
is where
Governor
the DOJ
Wes
plays a
Moore.
brilliant psychological
His administration is staring
As
down
long
a
as the company
projected
reports the crime to the
$1.5
DOJ
billion
within the
budget
120-day
deficit.
window, the government
$1.5
still
billion.
gives the company full
You can't just
credit
ignore
for
a hole that
self-disclosing.
deep. Oh, I see.
Even if the
And
employee
when government
beat them to the punch and
overspends to
told the
that degree,
DOJ
they
on
start
day
checking
2.
under the
But wait,
couch cushions
120
for
days
loose
is still
change.
so fast.
Except here,
Think
the
about the
couch
friction
cushion is the
involved.
green energy fund.
You have to hire
and the loose
external
change
lawyers,
is
you
hundreds
have
of
to
millions
fly
of
to
taxpayer
Germany,
dollars.
seize
what's the actual
laptops, and
proposal? How
navigate
much are they
strict
taking?
The
European
governor's
privacy laws
plan
just
diverts
to look at the emails.
It's a
$292
logistical
million
nightmare.
Then you have to
directly from the
translate
SIV
those
into the
documents,
state's general
interview
fund.
suspects,
Just to
and
balance the
package it
books.
all for the federal
Just to
government.
cover their
All in 4
overspending.
months.
They
impossible.
are
Well, that
using
friction is
energy
entirely
fines to pay
intentional.
for
This raises an
general
important
government
question about
operations.
corporate readiness. The
Bureaucracy,
DOJ is forcing a
salaries,
race.
office
The
supplies,
internal
you name
corporate
it.
clock
But that's
and
not
the
even
DOJ
all of it.
whistleblower
I
clock
I read in
are
the
running
sources there's also a
simultaneously.
rebate
Wow.
scheme.
The moment
Yes,
the tip comes in,
this is the
corporate
part
lawyers
critics
have
are
to
calling a
scramble.
political
Because if the
sweetener.
lawyers
They're
drag their
grabbing
feet
another
and they wait
$100
until day
million out
121
of the
to call the
fund to
DOJ.
give a
And the employee
one-time
already told the
$40
government
rebate
The
to
company
eligible
loses all
households.
the benefits. The free passes vanish.
Earbucks.
So let me
Fine
get this straight.
reductions are gone.
The state mandates
The
drive up
multi-million-dollar
energy
corporate
costs.
monitor is
The
assigned.
utility companies pass
Speed
those
is now the
massive
most
costs
critical
to you
variable
and
in corporate
me. Our
survival.
bills go up
A
by
company
hundreds of
cannot
dollars
spend
a year.
quietly looking
And then the
into an
governor takes a
allegation
chunk of our
anymore.
own money,
They have to assume
hands
the
us back
DOJ
a
already
crisp
knows
$40
or will
bill,
know by
and
tomorrow.
basically says,
So what does
"You're
this all
welcome."
mean?
That is the
We
exact
always try to
math.
bring it back
It's
down.
wild.
Whether
And if you look at the
you
recent
are an
supplemental
employee
budget,
sitting
they're
in a
cutting or
cubicle who
shifting
spots a
another $80
sketchy
million.
accounting
When you
trick,
add all this up,
or a
this rate
manager
depletes
signing
the
off on
fund
a
by
massive
82%.
corporate merger,
82%
Or
of the
just
fund
someone who
wiped
wants to
out.
understand
Wiped
how
out.
the
Leaving only
modern
about
business world
164
million for the
operates.
actual
Exactly.
green
The
initiatives
landscape
it was
has
legally meant
fundamentally
for.
changed.
That is not a
The
trim.
days of hiding
That's a
corporate
total
sins
gutting.
in the filing cabinet
And this
are
is where the
completely
politics
over.
gets
The old
super
playbook
interesting.
of sweeping
Because you
things
would
under the
assume
rug
the
is
environmentalist
It
groups
is.
like the
The math
Sierra
simply
Club
does
or
not
the
support it
Chesapeake
anymore.
Climate Action Network.
The government has made
You'd assume they'd be
confessing too
furious.
profitable
They
and
were.
hiding too dangerous.
Initially,
And
when
that
this
leaves
first
us with a
leaked, they called it
fascinating dynamic to
unacceptable.
consider on
They
your
said
own.
it was a huge
We have a
mistake
system
to
where
use
employees
this
are
money
financially
as a petty
incentivized to
cash
report
drawer.
their bosses
But
for
then they
millions
folded.
of
They
dollars.
completely
A
folded.
literal bounty
Now
system.
they are
Right.
actually
We have
supporting
companies
parts of the
frantically
governor
racing
their own
spending
workers to
plan.
confess to the
Talk
FBI
about
before a
strange
120-day
bedfellows.
hourglass
Why
runs
on
out.
earth would they
We have
do
executives
that?
watching
If they
their
truly
bonuses
believe climate
vanish
change is
to
an
pay for
existential
corporate
crisis,
sins.
why let the
So
state
does
raid
this
the survival
machinery
fund?
create a
It's just
flawless
raw political
self-policing
calculation.
culture of
They know
extreme
voters are
ethics,
getting
or
crushed
does
by
it just
inflation
create
and
a
high
culture
energy
of
bills
intense
right now.
corporate
If
paranoia
these
where
green
everyone
groups
in the
attack
building
a
fears that
$40
they're wearing a
rebate,
wire?
even if it's